Hello to everyone. Today on Flixu, we'll be talking about the science fiction film Project Gemini, 2022. After this, there will be some spoilers. When a worldwide plant virus first appeared 3 years ago, it immediately began to decimate the majority of our ecosystems. Severe autoimmune disorders are brought on by eating virus-contaminated food, and the loss of plant life has resulted in a 10% reduction in atmospheric oxygen, which has increased the frequency of natural catastrophes throughout the planet. Leading scientific institutions throughout the globe have been unable to find a solution, and many are beginning to believe that the Earth is doomed. The sole remaining chance is Project Gemini, which Dr. Stephen created around 2 ancient extraterrestrial relics. Paleontologists believe the artifacts are 4 billion years old, which is before there was any life on Earth. In order to develop a ship that could fly autonomously and find a suitable planet to terraform, Stephen's crew had to reproduce the sphere and the engine's super tough components and make replicas of them. The sphere, which is used to produce life and functions as a result of several orders that the team has finally completed deciphering, is evidence that life on Earth was originated by extraterrestrials. Doctors and military pilots will be part of a team that will go to the solar system TESS, many hundred light-years away, to build Earth 2.0 using the sphere. Amy, Stephen's wife, is opposed to his going on this trip. She still arrives at the base the day of the launch to attempt to stop Stephen from departing, but she is late and must watch as the spacecraft departs the Earth. An odd break on the alien sphere occurs as the ship departs the atmosphere, suggesting they may not be alone. The spacecraft creates a warping gateway using the alien engine technology, enabling them to travel around the cosmos. But as soon as they cross across, the systems reveal a mistake. They haven't really arrived at TESS, instead, they're someplace else. Engineer Peter is temporarily stripped of his job when Stephen accuses him of entering the coordinates incorrectly. Later, while Stephen relaxes, he continues to reflect about Amy as well as the first time he used the sphere, when it permitted him to view an odd humanoid shape that vanished in an instant. The crew is then instructed by Stephen to attempt to establish the jump trajectory in order to determine their location, but they are unable to do so since all of their data is incorrect, as if they had traveled between the third and fourth dimensions. Peter departs from his bunker in the meanwhile and grabs a security camera so he may examine the sphere on his own. The computer alerts the crew that someone has opened the repair airlock and that an unknown item is on its way. Everyone is startled when they unexpectedly see a frozen Peter floating outdoors. Dr. Leona, who has known Peter for 8 years and knows that he wasn't that sort of person, refuses to accept Dr. David's theory that Peter stopped things because he couldn't bear to live with his error. She is reprimanded by Stephen for sobbing over the villain who has brought about humanity's demise and is given Peter's responsibilities moving forward. Later, David reveals that when his daughter passed away, he too considered ending things, but decided to try to be of help. He's feeling worthless again now that the assignment is complete, but Stephen assures him that they will find a solution. The spacecraft then encounters a planet with volcanic rock. Despite the lack of oxygen, the outer atmosphere is not hostile, so they would simply require breathing masks. Stephen is eager to land because he believes it would be the best way to carry out their plan, but Captain Ryan stops him and reminds him that they haven't done a thorough inspection of the planet yet and that by doing so, Stephen is irresponsibly endangering the crew's safety. However, Stephen doesn't give a damn and reminds everyone that he is in charge here. Officer Richard will remain aboard the mothership while the squad departs on a shuttle. The braking thrusters must be used in order to halt the shuttle's descent as soon as it approaches the planet and encounters a fierce storm. Although it will exhaust all of their gasoline and prohibit them from turning around, it is their last hope of surviving. The crew drops asleep as the shuttle touches down, and Stephen dreams about the day he gave Amy a bracelet crafted from a specific piece of the ancient sphere, attempting to link the two things that meant the most to him. The group awakens a little while later and resumes their job right away. Although there hasn't been any serious damage to the shuttle, they are stranded because of limited fuel. Stephen doesn't see an issue with this since they were there to remain for 4 years, and even if they didn't land where they planned to, he is certain that they can use one of the enormous caverns as a dome to launch the sphere from. A strange ooze begins to fall from the walls of the shuttle's secret passageways. When Richard checks the other chambers in the mothership, he discovers this goo as well as the missing camera. Once everyone is dressed appropriately, the team transports the sphere to the closest cave and successfully activates it there. Then they go back to the shuttle to start gathering data, but Ryan stops them and declares martial rule has been declared in the station. He presents some documents Richard provided him while the physicians were at work in order to justify his choice. In order to protect himself against accusations of faults in the future, Peter recorded a video of himself inspecting the sphere. He notices something moving in the shadows as he opens the engine door, It suddenly leaps on him, kills him, and throws him out of the ship. The form of this thing can't be captured by the camera, but Richard claims that after reviewing all the film, he has determined that it has been with them ever since they left Earth, since it entered the sphere like the Trojan horse. It most likely was the reason for the jump's failure, but it is no longer aboard the mothership. Instead, it has descended to the planet with a shuttle. Richard is able to find it because the alien interferes with the electromagnetic field, which accounts for the poor recording. David abruptly interrupts the conversation because he has discovered something strange about the system. The sphere is now running a different software from the one they uploaded. Ryan prevents Steven from returning to the sphere by telling him that he won't allow him to lead any longer and by accusing him of concealing secrets. Ryan says that Richard also discovered video of Steven seeing that strange form months earlier on Earth, indicating that he was aware of the danger but failed to alert anybody, making Peter's death his responsibility. Steven is offended by this charge and runs out of the room, remembering all the effort he and David put into this project. Due to his ongoing grief, Steven wasn't sure whether David should have accompanied them, but David persuaded him he was alright and wanted to improve the planet to save other children from passing just as his daughter did. A short while later, Steven runs into David and invites him to slip out via the airlock with him to check on the sphere. When Steven reminds David about his daughter and the future of the Earth, David is persuaded to defy Ryan even though he first doesn't want to. As soon as they get in the cave, they discover that someone changed the parameters, causing the sphere to produce an alien life form more quickly than it did life on Earth. David begs Steven to go and talk to everyone, but Steven starts working on the sphere settings right once. When David sees the alien approaching on their radar at that same time, he fires a warning shot to attempt to encourage Steven to move. When Steven answers by pulling out his own weapon, they see the alien had already entered the cave before things could become nasty. Both guys start running away when Steven takes a chunk of the sphere with him. They can hear the thing approaching due to its sounds and shadows. When they emerge from the cave, they can see it clearly for the first time, but they are able to return to the shuttle and close the airlock before the monster can attack them. David criticizes Steven for endangering their life, but Steven says the sphere is more important and that he won't think twice the next time. When Steven says they'll need to use force to stop him, Ryan strikes him after arriving to chastise Steven as well. The crew is abruptly alerted by the computer that the integrity of the module has been violated. Leona leaves her room to investigate the problem and discovers a lot of goo in the hallway before being abruptly yanked back into another location. Frank is the one who tells her that the alien has broken through the bottom deck and is now inside the lander. The couple moves cautiously toward the lab's hiding place as it becomes more difficult to breathe. A peculiar noise can be heard emanating from behind the plant units as the lights abruptly go out. This indicates that the alien is there, so Frank forces Leona to leave the room. As she exits the room and heads down the hallway, she overhears Frank's cries as the alien suffocates him. Ryan yells at Steven for bringing the alien back with him while Leona meets with the rest of the crew in the control room and informs them of what transpired. They lost touch with Richard and were unable to see the rest of the ship because the thing broke a breach in the hull, destroyed the generator, and rendered the cameras useless. Since it's his responsibility, Steven offers to go and reconnect everything since there is no other option. However, doing so would be incredibly challenging if they can't find the monster. Steven cautiously approaches the generator while carrying a weapon and succeeds in re-establishing connection. The moment Steven attempts to escape, he starts hearing those sounds. The crew can now monitor the alien and informs him that it is close by. Fortunately, Ryan acts quickly and uses a metal rope to haul the man back into the control room. The group then decides on a strategy to smoke the alien out of the ship. Leona unlocks the airlocks and lab door while Steven waits outside to serve as bait, running to a different room to hide when the alien emerges. Richard attempts to start the engine to burn it out, but he is unable to do so since the alien is interfering with the signal as it swiftly starts moving through the airlocks. Leona responds to Steven's call for assistance as he flees for his life, but just then the alien emerges, giving Richard access to the engine once again. The beast is damaged by the fire, but this isn't enough to kill it, so Steven, who is being carried inside by David, runs back inside with Leona. As they seal the door and leave the alien's limb inside, a tentacle injures David's arm. Ryan closes the airlocks and the others get to reseal the hole as the beast makes its way back to the cave. Soon after the crew discovers Frank's corpse, Leona chooses to take her own life out of sadness, and Steven starts to consider Amy once again. She had attempted to persuade him to remain by saying she was developing a vaccine but, more crucially, that she was expecting a child. Nevertheless, this was enough to persuade Steven to stay since rescuing the planet was more important than his personal life. Stephen delivers the tentacle so that David may examine it while David goes to the lab to get his wounds stitched. He learns that the creature is a bio-robot formed of the same substance as the sphere, indicating that the sphere's original intent was to create similar creatures. David learns from Stephen that the tentacle infected him with a microbe that possesses a strong defensive mechanism, making his blood the only source of a vaccine that can rescue Earth. The alien is a transponder, and this is how his culture colonizes planets, because as soon as Stephen makes a cut in the tentacle, the lights flash erratically and he recalls the vision he saw back on Earth. Ryan locks Stephen up in the lab and informs him that he is being arrested for endangering everyone's lives when Stephen determines that they must kill the alien and reset the sphere. When Ryan points out that lives are disposable to Stephen, David concurs, noting that Stephen has never given a damn about people and just cares about being the hero. Stephen is reminded of their last quarrel when Amy accused him of having a savior complex before tossing her bracelet into the trash. They didn't leap through space, rather, they jumped through time, according to Stephen's idea, which Richard later verifies after looking at the trip records. They are still on Earth, but 4 billion years have passed since the beginning of life. The replica sphere they brought is the identical one that future paleontologists will discover. Stephen becomes pleased when he finds the sphere piece he took earlier is the same one he uses in the future to build Amy's bracelet, so he goes on to write a message on it to instruct Amy how to activate the sphere they left behind, oblivious to the fact that David's wound is becoming worse. While dealing with the news that the crew failed their mission, Amy appears to Stephen's lab in the present. Richard unexpectedly informs Stephen of some worrying information. Ryan is getting ready to blow up the sphere with explosives and has switched off his radio to prevent objections. When Ryan is found in possession of the explosives, Stephen begs Richard to reopen the airlock so he may out, and as soon as he does, he starts outlining how they might come up with a better scheme. A shot from David, who had escaped through the airlock and had become insane due to the infection, suddenly interrupts their chat and kills Ryan. David believes that the alien has selected him to help it set things right since humans are a malfunction from the sphere. To distract David, Stephen hurls Leona's Rubik's Cube into the wall. Stephen then shoots David, causing him to flee injured. The bomb is then set off, and Stephen exits the building to fire a flare to attract the alien's attention. David shoots fire on Stephen as he goes down the hallway and forces him into hiding. Stephen manages to track David to the control room and shuts it up there. The alien then enters through the entrance and comes up to Stephen, who uses a rapid shot to knock it off of him. As Stephen starts to flee, the alien pursues him. When Stephen eventually returns to the control room, he runs into David, who attempts to murder him. The arrival of the alien, who stops the beast's progress by killing him first, gives Stephen the opportunity to escape the shuttle just before the bomb detonates and ends the beast's life. After briefly falling asleep outdoors, Stephen is roused as Richard tries to make touch with anybody still alive. Stephen instructs Richard to wait behind while he goes back to the cave to use the sphere since the storm is too intense for him to come and help him. Amy locates her bracelet once again in the present and, after finally reading the message, activates the sphere with it. The couple then reconnect in a fusion of the past and now, and Stephen rushes to give his wife the vaccine's recipe before confessing his love just before the connection breaks off. Amy sobs as she realizes she is now a widow after Stephen perishes in the cave from a lack of air. Thanks to the vaccination that is now making the world a better place, Amy is raising a wonderfully healthy baby several months later. What do you think of this movie, guys? In the comments area below, please tell me. If you like my videos, kindly click like and subscribe for more. I'll see you all when I'm back.